All right. Hello, everybody. Welcome to day 4 of spoiler season. Um, should be a fun day. I've got two great guests with me today. Anarchomushroom and Ilksvorbern. And I definitely should have asked how to pronounce that. And we're going to hear some more pronunciation challenges from me over the next next hour or so. And then also tomorrow when my spoiler drops. Despite me having not as many hard cards. But anyway, we're here to talk about today's spoilers. But first, I should have my guests quickly say hello and introduce themselves as well.
Yeah. Hi. My name is Podrig, also known as Anarchomushroom. Um, you may know me from such metas as the Irish meta, um, and um, the online meta, I guess. I'm the lead producer for No Signal. And yeah, delighted to be on the show.
And hi, I'm James. I'm Ilksvorbern. I am a UK player. I was playtesting for NSG over System Gateway, um, and I make a few kind of alt arts, usually on MS Paint. Um, and yeah, and I placed 55th at UK Nats. So there we go.
And yeah, people at Baram Wu shouting it out in the stream. If the original daily casts, courtesy of Ed, who I kindly let me take over this, did a legendary marathon session on Lou and Steve with Anarchomushroom. So we'll have to go find the VODs for that.
Yeah, they still exist. They're still out there. It's 3 hours of me and Ed. If you ever want to watch two people get like more drunk and drunk as the evening goes on, and watch them derail in real time, it's a great way to spend 3 hours.
Yeah, I had Ed on my stream once. He's like, "Oh, let's just play a game so you can show me how something goes, like how some matchup goes." And all of a sudden, 3 hours had passed of him trying to fill my time. Um, so I understand how it happened to the two of you. Um,
Yeah.
so today's spoilers are coming to us mostly courtesy of Code Marvelous. Um, So Pete and also I guess Sanjay and oh my goodness, Edie, right, from Run Last Click, or
Mm.
formerly of Run Last Click. So I will put a link to that in the YouTube description if you have not watched that and you're watching it live. I mean, I prefer if you stuck around, but I also would understand, like, and I would definitely recommend at some point going back to the original source because they discussed these cards. I think probably honestly at more length than we're going to, just given the nature of this show. But I guess I should very, very quickly do my usual question of um, when did you two start playing Netrunner?
Uh, so I started playing Netrunner in 2019 when I bought an OG core set off of um off of someone on Facebook, and I was like, oh, I've always wanted to play Netrunner, and then I bought Netrunner. I was like, wow, this game is lit. And then I found out the game had been cancelled and then uncancelled, and I went to Worlds that year on kind of a whim, and I ended up playing an absolute metric buttload over the lockdown, and now I'm helping to make it. So yeah, that's my story. That's my Netrunner story. And now I spend too much time on it. So yeah,
Like most of us do. And James, how
yeah.
about yourself?
I think my entry to Netrunner, I think my intro was actually just stolen there by Podrick because I also in 2019 bought an OG core set. I think mine was from eBay this time. Learned to play it by playing against myself just in my living room. Went to my local meetup, which was an hour and a half away on the train. And they were really nice because they were like, "Hey, you can't play those cards. I mean, you can, but not with us. But they gave me like a whole stack of IDs and then printed out proxies of like, I guess it would have been Downfall that had just come out then, as well as a load of other sort of standard cards that were regularly played. I went from there, and then I went to UK Nats that year, which was really exciting, and I met kind of the people who've become my closest Netrunner friends. Shout out to Loveman and Flenson. And yeah, then the game got kind of taken online because of COVID. But then during that time, I joined the NSG playtest team. So I spent the whole of lockdown I was unemployed at the time, between jobs. So I just played Netrunner for the entire lockdown, basically. And
Yeah, I was technically employed, but in a job that used me so little that I also did. That was like I just got to test all the time because of that, and it's a great life. If we could just get everyone to find jobs that were like just enough to keep the lights on, and then just play Netrunner all the time, I think it'd be pretty swell.
I'm back in a job like that. It's great.
Oh, very jealous. I'll have to. Actually, maybe mine will ease up in a couple of weeks. It's going to hit me pretty hard as soon as these streams are done, though, so that'll be fun. Apologies for vamping just a bit. I'm trying to get one thing ready for the stream. There we go. All right. Let's move on to the first card, I think, now that I've successfully vamped for like 15 minutes. Hey, Ed. All right, let's pull up the very first card. This is Katorga Breakout.
Katorga Breakout. Like it makes sense.
Yeah. It is a 2-cost run event in Anarch for 3 influence. Its text is run any server. If successful, add 1 card from your heap to your grip. And the flavor text is, I promised I would come back for you, no matter the cost. So
I mean, this is like it's like deja new, like new deja vu. But obviously it's like conditional based on you making a run. I think this card is cool. I think this is cool as fuck. I love deja vu. I love deja vuing for account siphon. I don't know if I'll be Katorga breakouting for a diversion of funds, but I mean, I love runner recursion. There's no runner recursion in the game, and this looks. I want to play this in like startup and get back Justishkas and make the corp miserable. That sounds great.
I mean, you say there's no runner recursion, but we have labor rights. And we also have, though I'm not going to pull it up because it's only I bring it up as a punchline. We have Harmony AR therapy. So like
true, yeah.
Yeah, technically we have that's a printed piece of cardboard that is legal and standard.
Yeah.
So I guess like what do we think is like what decks would want labor rights versus Categora Breakout?
I mean, I guess Categora is like.
I think it's Katorga. I think I'm putting an extra syllable in there. Apologies. I'm
Katorga.
throwing you out.
Like Katorga, you're getting, you know exactly what you're getting back, and you're getting it straight back into your hand, as opposed to like labor rights. It's like end game. You're bringing stuff in that you're going to need, but that you're then going to draw back into. But this is like a specific piece that you need in your grip, and I think that seems to be like the key difference there. Like the function of it is slightly different.
Yeah, I think as well. I think labor rights is obviously much better if you have an Anarch that's like say for example Max. Obviously Max and labor rights is like obviously like a great combo. Hoshiko and labor rights does work, although not as quickly, because obviously Max gets you to the bottom of your deck faster. I think Katorga Breakout is, I think the decks that are going to play Katorga Breakout are the decks that want to like. So I guess historically decks that Anarchs that used to play say Deja Vu which was the old 2 cost, and it's like 2 cost archive memories, but for the runner. So you just pull a card from your heap to your grip, no strings attached. Those decks that liked recurring back stuff like account siphons, wanton destructions, like big high impact events, and so that they could like play them immediately or next turn. So I think Katorga Breakout, like decks that want to do recur powerful, one-off effects will want Katorga Breakout. The question is, are there enough of those events in standard? Um, so, do you have like obviously there's not account siphons, diversion of funds, there's Chastushka, but what else are you getting back with your Katorga breakouts? Because if you want to get a program back, you've got Summel Chip. Um,
Yeah, I guess
uh,
though, like, hey, we've also now seen a ton of program trashing, so let's get some incidental value of, well,
mhm.
except that we're all playing heat breakers anyway, so never mind. If we end up in the world, maybe once Flashpoint rotates, this is like a sneaky retrieval run sometimes. Um,
I mean, that sounds lit as hell.
but
Yeah, and I guess in startup, like the value is probably going to go up much higher because of how like with when the rotation happens, how there's going to be a lot of core damage, a lot of net damage, a lot of meat damage, a lot of self damage, like all these things happening, rig shooting, and so I guess this, because you don't have those bin breakers, the value of this will go up quite a lot. I guess it can get back APOC, which is potentially quite good.
yes, yeah.
Oh shit! Yeah, you can use this on your APOC turn. Oh, that's sick. That's so good.
Yeah.
Why did I not think of that?
Yeah, this is definitely an APOC support piece. And I think the other like this is obviously like you're recurring fewer cards than you are with labor rights, but what you're doing is you're getting that card with much greater tempo, so you don't have to spend more clicks to draw it, and you're gonna get it right away. So yeah, I think as you mentioned earlier, like the high impact events are definitely what you want to land right away. Um, I think it is like it's a pretty significant cost. The fact that it doesn't eat up the access, I think, is nice in theory. I think the problem is like I don't know how much you're gonna like be able to run HQ or R&D for a single and then get additional value on it. Um, but who knows?
Yeah, it's only if you're like already combining that with another effect that it might be like beneficial. I mean, I don't know if many Anox are already playing twinning in faction yet, but if you're using it to like you're running a server because you want to charge your twinning, or you want to do like, I don't know, charging your boat or something like that. The other thing I feel like there's so Infinite Nutshell saying in the chat that you can use this on a run where you expect to take damage, which makes me think of another card that we're going to see later on, and how it might kind of interact with some of like the other cards in this in this release.
Yeah, I think it's interesting. Like this is if this was released during like a Count Siphon meta, everyone would be going FFG. What the heck are you doing? But now it's like, maybe this sees play. It sort of depends, like, et cetera, et
I think
cetera.
I think I think it's much stronger. I think it's stronger in a format like startup where the cost of a single access on especially like a central server is like pretty low. Like you can get into most because the ice is so much worse and the breakers are so much better paired against the ice. You can get into a server for pretty cheap. Um so the value, it's not like in standard where you're like, oh, they have a Fairchild. I have to get through like a Fairchild or uh, a DNA tracker or a toll booth or something, and it's gonna suck. And this looks a lot worse. Whereas in startup, you're like, oh yeah, I'll cleaver through their Eli and get my Chistushka back or my my running hot back for more, or a card we're going to see very very shortly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think the idea is like, oh yeah, we want to hit with a bunch of events. The 2 costs is going to be relevant. But I think rather that let's hit one of the payoff cards and we can use it to color that we can bounce around a little bit in the discussion. But we've got Finality, which I think is arguably a power card. It is a 2-cost run event, and it says as the additional cost to play this event, suffer 1 core damage. And it says run R&D. If successful, access 3 additional cards when you breach R&D. The flavor text is, my guilt is never to be doubted.
This card's fucking sick. I love this. This is legit like one of my favorite cards in Parhelion. I love this.
I'm really intrigued. I want to know what the flavor text is about. Maybe.
So I think these are supposed to be like, so if you actually go and look, this is card 66. The previous card was 67. But I think they're meant to be like a 2-part story piece, where like Finality is the post of the pre in the previous card.
Oh, that's cool. That's sick.
Yeah.
I've just noticed that Essa has like a hand in their lap and they're covered in blood. That's like, yeah, epic. Or who is it? Is it Zincheng? Somebody in chat said that like this card is super fucking metal, and I'm like, yeah, it is. This is sick. Yeah, I just like, I want to play the Essa deck in either startup or standard that plays like 3 of these and a bunch of recursion, and you just play this over and over again, and you see like, what is it? Including the sabotage, it's like 5 cards, 6 cards.
Yeah, you're seeing a net of 6 cards each time you play this, assuming that the top of R&D is completely unknown.
Yeah, like, that's sick. That's so cool.
Yeah, I think this is very clearly an Essa card, and I think pretty, like, it's, people, I think it was Zichling calling out like, oh, is this that much better than the Maker's Eye? And like, I think it's like additional accesses get more valuable, especially on the events. I don't like, it's tricky to evaluate because like Maker's Eye is clearly seeing like 0 play in standard at the moment, but it's like, well, some of that is also like, oh, if you steal an agenda, suddenly like you only know there's like 2 cards that kind of. Whereas this is like, oh no, I actually get to dig deep and I don't have to have pressure to play one for a whole extra turn. Like I get a whole extra turn to set up before I'm kind of broken the R&D lock.
Yeah, like you can actually lock the corp here with this, because if you like say trash one of the cards or you steal one of the cards, then that's 3 on top. So they need to like draw to clear R&D, which is like, I think as a runner you are so okay with taking that exchange. You're like, I would be happy for you to spend 2/3 of your turn, just drawing just to clear R&D lock. And I think the cost is like not massively significant. I guess if you're playing Essa, like you're taking a core damage, obviously it's good for you. But I think even like Reg Anarch is like kind of okay taking a core, maybe 2, as like if this is your closer.
Yeah, and I think like, because you can
ahead.
use it with twinning, right? So if you're
shit, you can use it with twinning. That's a lit.
Yeah, which is
better and better.
You can be getting your 1 or 2 accesses a turn. Hopefully, you're twinning depending on how much you're charging it, and then like maybe go to like 5 or 6 cards accessed as well as potentially the sabotage. Yeah, and yeah, you can use imp on it. It does seem like 2 cost seems quite. I don't know. I guess you're seeing 4 cards, so maybe it's not expensive. But I'm just thinking. But I guess 2 cost maybe isn't as expensive now because you have Ghost Tongue and Mystic Miami to mitigate that.
Yeah, I mean, I think like between this and Katorga Breakout, like I feel like you just like if you weren't on like I think you probably weren't on Ghost Tongue before, but now suddenly you've got some really nice reasons between Ghost Tongue, Finality, Katorga Breakout, and maybe like Chershtushka if you want to build that full package. Like suddenly you can legitimately make 4 credits in a turn. I think pretty easily. And then yeah, using Mamie to also charge a twinning along here, like you can start getting some real strong access pressure that you couldn't get before in Anarch. So like people are like, oh, would you run this over Stargate? And it's like probably not on its own, but maybe there's this hypothetical package you can put together where you just access so many cards, it's just better ends up being better than throwing a click and 4 credits into a Stargate and hoping that it works off.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Someone saying Cheshtushka, Finality, Katorga Breakout, and then a deep dive is a nice turn.
That
I
does seem
love
like
it.
a fun turn.
I love it. I want to make that happen. I'll probably need to do it in startup because I think trying to make that happen in standard sounds like a really bad idea, but that sounds like sick in startup.
Some people are also mentioning the other side of getting 3 additional accesses, which is like the especially with the new corp cards we've seen in this set, is that there is like the corp cards add an element of risk to it with things like Nightmare Archives or like Dual Subsea causing you to potentially take another core damage. But I guess if you're kind of leaning into that playstyle, you're sort of that side of it almost becomes like maybe irrelevant because you're just pushing so much tempo and you're just kind of attacking so aggressively that you don't really worry about your core damage because you just end up winning because you've sort of access / milled so many cards.
Yeah, like 6 cards is just so many freaking cards to get for 2 credits. It's pretty wild.
Mhm.
And
It
yeah,
also
go ahead.
it also replaces itself because if you're doing it in ESA, you get the draw as well.
Yeah, maybe
You're just digging deeper.
maybe maybe you should just play Anacam Essa and like T400 Memory Diamonds and just like blitz through your entire deck.
And hope to God you win
Yeah,
and
yeah.
aren't
No,
playing against PE.
you just play 3 Chashushkas, 3 Finalities, and a couple of like 2 or 3 Katorga breakouts, and you say, "Hey, I'm gonna see half your deck, so try and stop me." You know?
I do like that. Like obviously, I never played when Noise was around, but I hear that there's a sort of fairly linear mill deck that can come with Noise, I guess, right? Where because the milling happens just when you install. So the like having more tools to have this interactive mill deck where you actually have to sort of push your luck and be a bit reckless and things like that, which is very Anarch. Like it feels like it's like thematically interesting as well as being kind of exciting to play.
Yeah, I think that's a really good shout out. Like I think in retrospect, Augustina looks a little bit strange when you look at the rest of this because, I mean, there's still cards left to be spoiled, but we haven't seen any Anarch Viruses this cycle, and all of the other Sabotage cards seem really like built around this idea that you're going to go in and hit the corp, and you have to actually go and put yourself at risk, which I think makes more sense for the flavor keyword as well. So I'm glad we're seeing more cards along that, but it does make Augustina stand out a little bit, and I think it's a little unfortunate, but that's how it goes sometimes.
I also just think as well on this, and I think one of the reasons why I love this card so much is that even if it's not like incredibly like powerful, I think it's a really good example of what I think excites me about playing Netrunner, which is big swingy, like not swingy, but big powerful like effects on like events and operations. Um, like you know, I'm gonna try not to sound like a fake Netrunner boomer, but like Account Siphon is a lit card. I don't think there's any denying that. and it is like a huge, massive game-defining moment wrapped in one card, and that's what finality is as well. Yeah, like it's interesting saying they're impactful cards, and I think this is absolutely an impactful card, and I think like this like stuff like this is what makes Netrunner cool and fun and great. And I think it's cool to see more cards like this, even if they're not like super competitively viable. I think it's great to see the game go in this direction with these like super like dramatic and impactful moments that are defined by like this card, this one. You can go and say, oh yeah, this is a game defining moment, and that's fucking cool. Apologies for the language, but that it is cool. It's sick as all hell.
Oh yeah, I gotta remind myself now. I gotta flag it when I upload this to YouTube. There's some mild swearing in it.
Sorry.
It's all good. It's all good. We're past the 15-minute mark or the five, whatever There's some supposed algorithm mark, like it was not the first 5 minutes or something. We're all good. So,
Lit.
yeah, threat level alpha though. Well,
Mm.
I think we've talked about this card a ton, and honestly, we might just go back and wrap it up and theorycraft this ESA list because it looks super, super sick already. But let's maybe move on to the next card, which is yet another Anarch event. So really pushing this prepaid Ghost Tongue Anarch deck. But this is Raindrops Cut Stone. 1 cost Anarch run event, as I said. 3 influence. So I think all of these have been 3 influence. Let me
I think so.
3, yeah. Run any server. Whenever a subroutine resolves during that run, including a subroutine that ends the run, place 1 power counter on this event. When that run ends, draw 1 card for each hosted power counter and gain 3 credits.
I want the art on a playmat.
Yeah, like
it's
Scott,
it's
this is
like
like Scott
beautiful and
Uminga,
terrifying.
Scott Uminga make bad Netrunner art challenge difficulty impossible. Yeah, this art's like so sick. Just like the shattered glass thing and like the black tendrils and stuff, and it's like, oh, it's so sick. Card's lit as well. Yeah, I don't know.
I'm going to quickly Shishu in the chat is asking, can you charge this mid-run? And the rules manager is coming in to spoil our fun and say, no, you can only charge installed cards, to which I say, boo. But also totally reasonable.
I would pay good money to pop a chat room on this to charge this mid run because that sounds gas. Yeah, I think that this is like I still don't know how I still don't know what to make of this because it's obviously like a bravado analog. Like it's like Anarch Bravado. It's like it encourages face checking. It gives you a reward for face checking. But I don't know. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not quite sure what to make of it.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like you need to be able to reliably get 2 card draw off of this, I think, for it to be a card that like is worth a slot in your list. I guess maybe if you're reducing like play cost to 0, it also starts to become okay because now it's a cantrip run that gains you 3 credits.
Yeah, because I think the you have to. I guess you have to wonder like whether you care about the subroutines resolving, and because if you need 2 subroutines to be resolving, it's like what are those 2 subroutines doing? Because if the subroutine is like an enigma, and you lose a click and then end the run, then I guess your click was you were potentially going to draw there maybe. And the enigma's now rezzed, you don't know what it is. Nothing really that bad's happened to you, but it's like if you run through this and you hit a drafter, it's like you're drawing a card and gaining 2 credits, but they fire a drafter potentially.
Yeah. Usually firing a drafter is like honestly one of the scariest ice to let the corp fire on most board states.
Yeah. And that makes me kind of like worry that it's this potentially kind of situational. I mean, again, there's another card that comes that we're going to see after this, I assume, which I think works very well with this card. But yeah, this is the hardest one to evaluate for me so far because I feel like I don't know where it sits versus all of the other cards in my deck. In like if I take like a freedom deck or an Issa deck, I'm like, where does this sit in there? What position is this in?
Yeah,
Like,
Yeah,
which
like
of my 15, 18 events is this going to be?
yeah, I'm not quite sure where, like, what deck exactly is fitting this in. Like, I don't know who is making the room for this. Um, because like even if you like run even in a format like startup where as we said the ice up is a little bit worse. Like if you run this, if you like run this into like an ice wall or something, you get a card back in 2 credits, which like I'm not super jazzed about that. Um,
Yeah, it's very different to like in Bravado where you make like. Well, I guess Bravado is a weird one actually because I always feel like because the
it's
payback on it is it's such a good card, but because the payback on it is so high, you forget that you paid 3 for it in the first place.
at the same time, like, yeah, and I guess that's maybe the thing is like the Bravado. I mean, Bravado is just kind of like 1 credit too good, I think, or like half a credit too good. So it's like
mm,
you have to come up with a scenario where you can get this to have that sort of value. And yeah, like it's hard to make. This is probably coming in after Dirty Laundry or something like that. But I think there's like a lot of meta ice where like you could play this as a potential meta slot. Um, where you look at something like, oh hey, if I'm seeing a lot of Wayland in particular, like so many Wayland cards have a subroutine that you can let fire, like Afshar,
mm.
Border Control, um, Mausolus, like
Yeah, Autumn.
Boredom, yeah, like there's a lot of really commonly played uh Wayland Ice. And honestly, even sometimes you could let a trash a card fire if what you're really looking for is a draw, but you can lose an icebreaker that you're just gonna reinstall later. Like there's there's some real options there. And I think NBN has a couple of those as well, or like a couple that you're never gonna pay to break. So you've got
Yeah,
some
like this is pretty
choices.
okay into something like IP block. Like they res an IP block, and you're like, okay, like I trace 3 and the end of run if they're tagged fires, but nothing happens. And I'm pretty
Yeah.
happy with that exchange.
Someone
Yeah.
in Slack mentioned earlier how you could, if you let all of Eula fire, you could like pay 6 to draw 6 cards.
Yeah, and then
Is that worth?
I mean, well, then you get 3 credits back, so you've paid a net of 4 to draw 6. I don't know.
What was
Uh,
quality time? Quality time was 3, draw 5, right?
yeah. So it's just scales quality time.
I
Um,
mean, quality time saw play. Ergo,
ergo, this must be good. I also
this must be good.
Thanos calling out. You can draw your whole deck on a ganked loop. Um,
Oh fuck, that's really funny. That's
um,
good.
Yeah, and once again, this is also a run event that doesn't replace access. So, like, if you can let subroutines fire and make a successful run, which the next card will help with, you're definitely gonna get something. I also want to also shout out Baron who's saying, "Man, can we unban Slot Machine now?" Because that would be another card where like you let subroutines fire all the time and just waltz right through.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. I think like one thing I like about this is that because you get to draw back up if the subroutines fire, it means that like I guess you can use it to maybe mitigate stuff. Like if you've had to take damage to steal an oboe, or if you've had to take damage because you've taken a core damage because of something you've hit on your run, it sort of like speeds up your drawing back up so that it's not like maybe something awful doesn't then happen to you next turn. Which seems quite relevant. Although obviously you have to let the subs fire in the first place, which maybe won't be so good. I don't know. It's a weird one. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, it's
I think
weird. Like,
I feel like someone's going to break it at some point, or like do something insane with it. Maybe not break it, but like, yeah.
yeah, it is weird when you're thinking about this in the context of net damage, how it's basically just like letting you turn one card into another. And one of the reasons we're talking about it in the context of net damage is this next card. Uh, oh goodness.
I think it's Sakia Bankar Gantulga.
Sakyar Bankar Gantulga.
Yeah.
Okay, I will try and. I'm probably gonna call this person Bankar. Is
Bankar, yeah.
a 1 cost resource connection, 3 influence, and it says when your turn begins, you may choose a server. During the first encounter each turn with a piece of ice protecting the chosen server, whenever the corp would resolve a subroutine, instead they resolve do 1 net damage. Flavor text: with these two by my side, I've sworn never to fail. I can bear any pain so long as it has meaning. I will very, very quickly shout out. Bankar is mentioned in the flavor text for Raindrops Cut Stones. So there's meant to, there's some thematic tie in there.
Cool.
So first rules question. It says during the first encounter each turn with a piece of ice protecting the chosen server. Does that mean that it's only the first ice that this can happen on, or is it the first encounter you have?
So it's only the first ice you encounter on the server.
Okay.
So
I kind of love this card. I feel like it seems really fun to just basically be able to get in anywhere for net damage. I mean, assuming that they have like a single ice server. The downside is obviously you can't like on the first runner turn, you can't use it to like get in to get a Rashida. Because you can only choose the server once your turn begins, which is a bit of a shame, but maybe would have been too good otherwise. But yeah, it just seems like a really fun concept.
Yeah, like this card does. And I'm going to say something controversial. A lot of what the endurance does, which is break low early board states open really easily. And I think like people are shouting out lots of different things for it. Zato, but I think generally this card is just really nice against anti-rush decks because I'll take 2 damage to 2 net damage to trash a Rashida that's protected with a border control any day of the week. Like for 1 credit, that's so much better than finding any breaker I could put in my deck. And I'm Anarch, so like maybe I hit a Steel Skin or a Bin Breaker and I'm just gaining tempo on my own.
Yeah, precisely. Yeah.
Yeah, I think this is cool. It's like, yeah, I think it's funny that you compare it to endurance. Obviously, the power level is like way, way different, but it's doing the same thing, which I think is really interesting. It's also like I really like the style of Anarch. Like I really like this style of Anarch that this seems to be like promoting, which is just like I'm gonna run into every single piece of ice and I'm gonna use my face. And using your face is the best and most fun breaker. I saw somebody say as well, is Faust a better comparison? And I don't think it's like that. Like I think that's a really interesting comparison to make. It's obviously nowhere near as good as Faust, but I think it like it kind of does the same thing. I don't know. I think I never thought of comparing this to Faust, but now that somebody's mentioned it, I'm like, oh, that actually makes a load of sense.
Yeah, I actually like that a lot as a Faust comparison.
And Faust is cool, and Faust let you do things like just run aimlessly. Somebody said I'd slam it every turn to contest turn with Rashida, and I'm like, if my opponent puts a Rashida behind a border control, do I take if I could take 2 net to trash a turn 1 Rashida? Would I? or not turn 1, but like a turn 2 Rashida. Would I take 2 net to trash turn to Rashida? I'm like, yeah, I think I literally would.
Yeah.
Like
Actually,
every time.
I pulled up Clan Vengeance just for a hot second, but like honestly, this maybe goes into every Clan Vengeance Eternal list, just to get extra triggers off of that and make it go even faster. Um,
Is Clan
and
Vengeance whenever you take damage?
I'm pretty sure it is whenever you suffer any amount of damage. So
What
it
a
would actually
fucked up
every
card.
subroutine would be its own instance as well.
Oh man. That's sick as hell. Holy shit.
I love this card's probably gonna be like marginally playable in standard, and then like everyone's gonna be like, wait, but let me put in my Clan Vengeance Anarch deck. So,
So
uh,
one thing with this that Magnus the Robots pointed out is that once it's installed, you can't switch it off. So you have to you can choose a server you're not going to run, which they've said.
yeah,
So you could choose archives instead.
actually, I thank you for calling that out. I wanted to circle back to that. Because this says you may choose a server, you can elect to not choose a server entirely.
Ah, nice. Okay.
Yeah. You also
That's
can
good.
still break the ice, though, probably not something you want to do too regularly.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel
Breaking
if you're playing this, you don't care about breaking the ice.
Yeah.
I've also just realized this is. Oh no, wait. I got really excited there for a second and thought that this works really well with Hippo, but no, it doesn't. That is where it is not Faust.
Yes, it does. It does work pretty badly with Hippo, in fact.
Yeah. Yeah, actually, this is awful with Hippo.
It's also pretty awful with APOC. Because you'll lose your APOC.
So, Andre, the reason it's not great with Hippo is this doesn't count as breaking the subroutines. So you actually this card just basically does nothing for Hippo. Though it seems like maybe you're thinking about it in a slightly different way, so I'll be interested to see. But yeah, I think it's worth, I'll just pull up Raindrops Cut Stone so that we can very briefly talk about it in the yeah, it's a 2-card combo, but it's like, hey, if I can come up, if these cards can both be marginally good at the same time, to the point where I justify putting them in my deck, they start helping each other get more value, which, can sometimes be how you get cards that are kind of, like, those synergies are often what can make a Netrunner deck kind of sing a little bit more.
So. Yeah, I think this is cool. I like the combo. I like that it's connected narratively as well with Bankar. I think that's sick. Yeah, even though it's a little baby synergy, I think it's cool. I think it's a cool little synergy.
I think these kind of synergies as well. I mean, I'm thinking of more from like the new player sort of perspective. Not that like, especially if you're doing this maybe in startup, is that like I really like the idea of like a new player. They've bought maybe Gateway and Midnight Sun and Parhelion, and they just kind of work this out by themselves. And they're like, oh, hang on, now I get to draw loads of cards every time this happens. And I can do this each time I play this card, and getting that like spark of kind of like, whoa, this is so cool that this works with this thing, which is like one of the most amazing things about Netrunner. Enabling that, I like that.
Yeah, it's a good shot. Okay, and just to circle back for Andre's point, that like the reason this works nicely with Hippo is if people are putting trying to protect their big scary ice, that means they're not rezzing, and this just kind of punishes the fact that they're like not rezzing as many ice, so you get to go through like a Fairchild 3 for 3 cards, which seems pretty good. And then yeah, you can Hippo away the protecting ice if they try and set it up, but yeah, there's a little bit of clunk there, but Hippo is such a good card. I think it's hard to imagine that you don't put Hippo in every Anarch deck for a bit.
I also like the hollow burn. I like the little Somebody, I don't know who said it in chat, but somebody was like, "It's like the Temujin bird." I'm like, "Oh yeah, it's the Temujin bird." This plus
Um,
Temujin is straight gas.
uh, uh, does this see any play out of Anarch stealing a question directly from the chat? From Seachling?
I
I
don't
mean,
know.
yeah, I feel like, I mean, with Corp, you're obviously, sorry, not with Corpse, with Crim, there's, no recursion, and you're usually running very few breakers. That might change in the coming meta, but yeah, maybe not so much. Maybe in Shaper, because if you throw stuff in the bin, you can simulchip it back, hopefully. And it's sort of, if you've got this down and boat down, you sort of can get through anything, basically. But it is 3 influence.
Yeah, it's 3. And I think the problem as well is that like the Anarch card pool just lends itself well to just sort of aimlessly throwing away cards for stuff like this. Like Crim, you don't actually want to get rid of all of your like Busto events. Like you could maybe make the room for this in Criminal, but like you don't want to lose like your bravados, your doofs, your boomerangs. Like you actually like you have a lot of very high power cards. And Pants also raises the excellent point of Crim has boomerang, so why would you run it? When you've already got an infaction answer to like these kind of early rush board states. But it is a unique connection. So, Paula's Cafe. Polly's support? It's Polly's support.
Yeah,
right?
every one cost connection is poly support. And there's also deals with the faction staple Bethonymus, turning it into a single point of damage.
Oh man, what a nerf! Get wrecked. Restoring humanity. Glacier deck.
Yeah. All right. Yeah, I think it's interesting because like Anarch card decks are basically like every card in my deck is worth roughly a sure gamble, and so it doesn't matter how many sure gambles I actually play. I just want to get through all of them. And so this card's really good, but like Shaper and Criminal have like spikier, like this is my good card, this is my situational card, and so yeah, it's definitely hard to see this imported. Should we move on to the final card that was spoiled today? And also, people, all the 4 we've talked about so far were spoiled by Code Marvelous. I will have a link in the description. If someone wants to throw that in chat, I'd be much obliged. I didn't think to grab it ahead of time. But people should check that out. And then we have one more card, which is a Bassi. This is a Icebreaker Decoder. It is a 2-cost 1 MU, and it says the first time each turn you use this program fully breaks a piece of ice. You may trash 1 card from your grip to draw 1 card. And then it has interface 1 credit, break 1 code gate subroutine, 2 credits plus 2 strength, and a base strength of 1. And then every piece of ice I see a Bassi. And this was spoiled on Netrunner Dorks, I believe. I'll be honest, one of the reasons I'm opposed to community-specific scoops is because I don't want to go on Facebook anymore. So we would all have missed out on the scoop, but someone was a real hero and cross-posted this. So I think that might have even been. Was that you? Ilksvorbern?
No, not me. I haven't been on Facebook in months.
Okay. I thought someone else was doing it.
This card is like the compared to the last 4 cards, this card feels like it's like from a separate game almost, because like it's got this like super cool like weird demon art thing. And I even feel like like mechanically, it feels like slightly different to the other cards, because it's like deliberately trashing something as opposed to like taking a damage or, you know, letting something bad happen. But yeah,
Yeah.
that was just my first impression. But it's really cool. I also love the flavor text because I don't understand it at all.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Neither do I, but I love the art. This art is like great. I have no idea what I'm looking at, but I love it. It gives me big like ONR vibes, and ONR art is like sick. Somebody Zinching has posted the Abasi are alleged to be the spirits of the long deceased who dwell near graves or in deserted places or who otherwise travel about causing destruction. That's cool. That is very lit. Yeah, this is interesting. I think I'm really interested to see how Anarch Breaker design, because obviously we are eventually going to be in a world where bin breakers don't exist. And looking at the replacements for them, because we're going to be getting those kind of over this set and the next set, especially, I think is really interesting. And obviously, I think comparing this now is like, I think most anarchists are still going to play Black Orchestra over this basically all of the time. But in a post Black Orchestra world, I think this looks cool and interesting, and the card filter, because it's not really draw, you're losing a card to draw one, but the card filter is like real nice. And it's a really, really cool effect to have in your deck. Like you throw out, like Anarchs play moshing for a reason, because they're like, oh, these cards in my hand that I don't care about. I want more. And they're like, oh yeah, I don't need this second copy of my console or my second Abasi. I can get rid of it and see something else, which is good. Like, I just think that's cool. And yeah, if you throw out Steel Skin, you're laughing all the way to the bank.
Yeah. I will just quickly, so that if there are any people that listen to this as a podcast, Dis, who was I think in charge of flavor for a long time. The concept of Abasi is so ingrained into Saka that the verb to see Abasi is the everyday verb for to hate or to dislike. So this flavor text is basically every piece of ice I see hate. So, um, and then people are asking about icebreaker math, and so for 3 cost, 3 strength, 1 subroutine ice, this is going to be exactly equivalent to Black Orchestra. And then for 1 cost piece of ice, this is going to be probably cheaper than Black Orchestra. Skipan's actually doing the Savior's work here, saying Enigma is 4 to break, Hordem is 5 to break, and 6 to break for Messna Chestfo, which is not great for any of those. Those cards all are Blorch beats pretty handily.
Don't hurt yourself by trying to figure out how much DNA tracker costs to break with this. That will just upset you.
It's just a measly 11 credits. Right?
Is it a
No. I'm sorry. It's only 9. It's only 9.
So it's actually the same as Blorch,
right? Because you have to boost it. You
yeah.
have to boost it 6 to get up to strength 6, and then spend 3 to break.
Yeah. Okay. So this is as good. Okay. So your Pants is like it's just 3 net and 6 credits. Yeah, that's what it is. Actually, if you have a Bankar, it's just 3 net. It's just 3 net to get through DNA tracker. So suck it, Ice Creep.
Yeah, and we're seeing people say like, "Oh, hey, let's just like stick a turbine on it or throw in some leeches." And I'm like, I think those mostly apply to Black Orchestra too. Like, I think this does scale better because it's going to always have a 1-to-1 to break, whereas Black Orchestra can have a 3-to-2 to break, which does make it awkward on some high number code gates.
Yeah, I think when you're in, I think stuff like Abasi gets better in a world where you're kind of breaking ice like Anarchs of old, like pre Bin Breakers did, where you've got stuff like Leech and Ice Carver and um, you know, back in the day they had Parasite as well to make, this tough to deal with ice a lot cheaper. I also like Abasia dealing with like there's a bunch of like small ice in the
Hmm.
game that Black Orchestra really like sucks against. So stuff like
Oh,
um
Afshar's a huge one, actually. This saves you so
yeah,
much money against Afshar.
yeah, this is great versus Afshar. It's great versus what's the Jinteki 2 cost code gate, the one that
Thimble Rig?
swaps. Yeah, this is great versus Thimble Rig. Um Even Enigma, I think you're oh wait, no, hang on. Oh wait, no, Enigma's upsetting me. Never mind. Never mind.
Yeah,
Uh
yeah. Yeah, Enigma is like one of those ones where you're like, oh goodness, oh no. Um,
yeah, yeah, it's like you think is the Unity and Cat's Cradle are the same. I like that we have this little trio of code gates that you think are really good versus Enigma because they're small, and then you're like, oh wait, no, they're actually awful versus Enigma.
um, yeah, I think people in the chat as we're talking about are like, yeah, this is not that bad, and it's like that said, this has a significant cost compared to Black Orchestra, which is a click, right? Like that's the like
Yeah.
it's we're playing all of the other cards like Bakar, Raindrop Cut Stone, even Finality, like they all trigger off of having cards you care about in the bin, and this cannot go there for like you can't install this from the bin, so you have to install this now from your hand, which is it's the real cost of it over the bin breakers. Um,
Yeah.
I guess this is like kind of it's like it's a breaker for the future. It's a breaker for the post bin breaker world, so that there like is another decoder in Anarch in the future, even if for the time being it doesn't really see any standard play. But perhaps in a startup deck, with like Leech, or as someone's pointed out, the new Shaper card that boosts by +2 strength, or with Ice Carver and things like that. You're sort of assembling some kind of rig that means that this breaks like reasonably efficiently. Yeah, it's weird. It is so hard to analyze things because of how warping bin breakers are.
Yeah, and it's like I think this is an interesting card because like I think it's not unworth trying this card, even with the bin breakers being legal. I think most likely people will default back to Black Orchestra, but I could see a world where you give this a shot. And Thanos PKC then says, well, okay, if that's the thing, how does it line up against Buzzsaw? And it's like, yeah, probably not great, but maybe if you have, like, I think probably just a Steel Skins, maybe not enough to make this worth it over Buzzsaw. But then again, it's like, oh, well, if there's a lot of 5 strength code gates walking about, Abassi is usually going to, might even be your best in-faction option relative to something like Buzzsaw. But I don't know.
Yeah, and 2 credits to install feels a lot cheaper than 4.
Yeah, that's also a good point. Like,
Yeah.
if I have to pre-install my thing and I'm gonna have damage or like self mill or whatever you want to call it, like having to just put the 2 up front rather than 4 up front's quite significant.
Yeah, I guess it's all. I guess it all comes down to like obviously you're looking at this in a bin breaker world. Um, it's really hard to compete with it because the power of the bin breakers, even if the boost break is like worse for Black Orchestra, just the utility is so strong and the synergy you get with the pool is so strong. But in a world where those don't exist, I think it's really interesting because you have to decide like is Buzzsaw being perhaps maybe more efficient worth playing, or rather, is the effect on Abasi good enough to warrant playing over something, something that's maybe more efficient, like a buzzsaw or maybe an out of faction option, um, which is cool. I like that. Like that's good. That's just cool. Like breaker design. Like I want to make interesting decisions about what breakers to include because maybe the deck that I'm running Abasi is better because I want the card filtering. Um, I don't really care that it's maybe 1 or 2 credits more expensive to break ice than with Buzzsaw. You know, maybe I need the effect on a Bassi.
Yeah. It's like maybe if we come up with some kind of combo Anarch, tag me Anarch, for example, where it's like, yeah, I have like 2 cards that really matter, and at some point, all I need to do is look for them. This does maybe a little bit more than other stuff, but and I also want to shout out Thanos PKC for calling out the, oh yeah, you can use this with Anacam to draw 2 instead of 1 if you have an event you're not going to play.
Oh, that's cool. I like that.
All right, I think that's. Do either of you have any kind of closing thoughts on this package of cards?
No, I think other than that, like I've actually, from my initial looking at them like earlier today, I'm actually far more excited to like fiddle around with them and play some games with them now, having like actually sat down and thought about them and discussed them. Um, I think a lot of the corp cards hit me like, whoa, I want to play that immediately. These have taken a little bit more time. They seem a bit more like there's more nuance maybe to how they're played. Um, but yeah, I'm excited. I think this is going to be an amazing set.
Yeah, I think these cards are cool. I think this is a good. I think Anarch has it's. I think they've been the faction that I think No Signal have maybe not had as coherent, or at least as a, in terms of like the design of Anarch. Um, I'm kind, I don't think we've seen like a real solid direction from Anarch in like other stuff, but I think what we're seeing like these cards, I think is really really cool and interesting, and I like the direction the faction is going in. I like these kind of engine cards and these synergy cards. I think that's sick. I think finality is like lit as all hell, and I'm gonna like, as soon as I can, I'm gonna build like some kind of finality spam deck with like labor rights and Katorgas and any other recursion I can get my hands on, and I'm gonna spam the like, I'm just gonna finality and Chistushka people over and over again, and it's gonna be great. Yeah, I think these cards are like sick. They're super cool.
All right. Well, I think with that, I completely agree, and I'm going to, I think, wrap up the stream here. Thank you everyone for coming by. Thank you again to Padraig and James for coming on. Um, People should check out Code Marvelous's spoiler video where he talked about the first 4 cards. Tomorrow, I will be putting out a video, and there's nothing like last minute to record it. So we'll all see that nice and early tomorrow morning. And thank you everyone for tuning in and watching. And yeah, tomorrow we'll talk. We'll talk about the cards I talked about. Um, all right, but have a good night, everyone. So.
Have a good night, everyone. Bye.
Bye.